Happy New Year. Not sure how it got to be 2023 already, but it is. And as usual, I want to bring you market information right away. I'm tracking it on a regular basis, as you know, and it is an interesting shifting market that we're in. And so I know that the real estate market and what path we're on and where we're headed is heavy on everyone's minds. So today we're going to really get deeper into some of the data that we're looking at. I want to talk about leading, lagging, and coincidence indicators, what those are, and how to discern and understand the meaning that they bring to what's on the horizon. So we're going to talk about that. I also want to talk about the projections for both housing prices and interest rates. I want to talk about the bigger picture of the state and then the more hyper local perspective of what our Citrus County market is doing. And finally, just look at the housing crash as a whole. There's a lot of chatter about a housing crash. Is that something that we need to be worried about in the next 12 months? And how do we track that? And then there will be a nugget of silver lining for navigating the current and getting the most benefit out of the current market. And last but not least, if you stay tuned to the end of the video, I'm going to share with you my resolution for 2023 from a business standpoint. And I would love for you to listen to that so you can help hold me accountable to resolve to accomplish the goals that I'm setting out for myself in 2023. So as always, I'm Ruth Squires with eXp Realty, RES Luxury Group, where we bring you white glove service and red carpet treatment because we believe everyone deserves a luxury experience. So to start, let's talk about this idea that we could be headed for a housing market crash. LendingTree Consumer Survey shows really high percentages of Americans that think that we are headed towards a housing crash. So 41% believe the housing market will crash in the next 12 months. 72% who believe the housing market will crash think it'll be as bad or worse than the Great Recession of 2008. 58% expect a housing crash the next year, and they say they are postponing housing related changes. So these are the consumers that are on the fence, that aren't selling or aren't buying or aren't doing both because they're worried about what's on the horizon. I hear a lot of talk about this, different perspectives as far as, well, what's going to happen? You know, what kind of moves will the government make? You know, what will result from such and such thing that's going on in the environment? And there are so many impacts. So one of the things that I thought it would be good to just discuss is we look at and watch different indicators. We have leading indicators, lagging indicators, and coincidence indicators. So when we kind of define what are those, what does that mean? You know, a leading indicator is certainly something that we are seeing or expecting as we go forward, as we progress forward. And so the predictions that we listen to about what's going to happen in the new year, in the next 5 years, those are all leading indicators that we need to watch and be mindful of. Lagging indicators now is the actual data that we review from previous results, historical data. And of course, that can be a short-term window, a month. It could be a year, it could be 5 years, 10 years. And we look at all of that and try to make sense out of what patterns do we see in the market? What cycle of the market are we in? And then we have coincidence indicators, and those are what's happening today. What is the here and now? And so you kind of can look at all three of those things and try to make the most sense out of the environment that we have and what predictions we can make as we progress forward. And even beyond predictions, it's more of how do we navigate the environment we're in right now, right? Because you still have to make decisions, even though there's uncertainty often, you still have to look at that, put the data together, put the facts and the projections together and figure out how do you personally navigate what you're dealing with. So that's what I want to talk about and go through today. And I've got a few things that I'll show you here. The first one being, let's just look at the analysis of Florida versus Citrus County. So you hear a lot of talk again about what the changes have been year over year with prices, or most recently with prices. And when you hear the broader perspective for the state, or even the national perspective, we have to remember that our local environment is not always the same as what the larger picture is. So I like to make sure that you are getting the local data in addition to the news that you hear for the state or for the country. So when we look at Florida numbers, year over year, the increase in price has been 11% for the state. When we look at Citrus County, and these are the median prices, so that means the price is right in the middle of the pack. So 409,000 for the state of Florida, November 2021, and then 455,000 as of November 22, 11% increase. Citrus County, we were 275,000 in November of 2021, and our median price as of November 2022 is 269,900, 270. And so that's a 2% decline. Interesting that Florida as a whole would have 11% appreciation and our county had a 2% decline according to the stats in our MLS. So then we look at June through November. Again, interesting numbers, because Florida was 492,450 June of 2022, November 455,000 again, which represents a negative 7.6% change. So a decline of 7.6%. For Citrus County, from the data in our MLS, we have a median price of 249 as of June of 2022, and then 270 November of 2022. Well, that's an 8% increase. So the question becomes, well, why are we so drastically different? And this is a good representation of leading indicators, because the larger markets, so I talk about Tampa, Orlando, Miami, the big cities, they're going to lead us in the shift of the market. They're going to help project for us where we're going. So if you think about when the market became very hot, you always heard how much more was happening in the bigger cities, right? More offers per listing. But everything, we were reflecting it. We were just reflecting it in a more muted way, a more diluted numbers. And so it's helpful to look at the broader picture to help us understand the more local perspective. So when I look at these numbers and I think about, well, why would we still be showing an increase in value for our median prices versus a decrease? Well, I think that the likelihood is because we are still adjusting to this shifting market. If you look at our prices really haven't corrected. And so what I mean by that is the larger cities, the bigger markets, you're seeing a lot more price improvements and a lot bigger price movements. We're still looking at, just as of the end of the year, we were at about a 25% rate of price changes for our active listings, right? So that means 75% of the homes on the market are not making adjustments in price, even though they're sitting on the market for pushing 90-day periods, 3 months, which we were used to 2 hours on the market, right? So we will have to catch up to that. And eventually our market will realize, you know what, we are going to have to make price improvements because there's not as many buyers out there. There's not as much aggressive attack of our properties because inventory levels keep rising. And so we have to improve our positioning and make our home more appealing. And to do so, a price improvement or a price reduction is a really important tool. So we're going to catch up. But again, we are lagging behind the state of Florida as a whole and the bigger cities that kind of feed into these numbers at a higher rate. And that's why you're seeing that difference. So that's an important thing to realize. Now let's look at inventory. So Florida inventory year over year was 50,000 a year ago. And now the state is showing 90,000 homes on the market. That's an 80% increase in inventory levels. When we look at Citrus County, we had 485 homes on the market this time last year, and we now have 954 homes on the market. That's a 97% increase in inventory levels. So there again, we have, in this case, now outpaced as far as inventory increase for the broader state of Florida. Unemployment is another one that's important to watch, because unemployment is certainly indicative of what's on the horizon. If we have higher unemployment rates, then of course you're going to have less buying activity, right? Because there's going to be buyers, they're not employed, they can't afford a mortgage, they're not going to be buying a home. So right now we're looking at a 2.7% unemployment rate for the state, and job growth is predicted over 5% this year in 2023. So that tells me that should that prediction, that leading indicator, be met, that we should have consistency and stable unemployment numbers and rates. Housing starts. Housing starts is an important number to watch, because that's the new construction that's happening. And of course, we've been hearing about how there's not enough development happening to keep pace with the demand that's out there. So when we look at current housing starts for the state, we're looking at 7,562, which is down from 13,511 since April. So we are down year over year, but we're still up for both 5 and 10-year periods. Now, what's important about that? Well, if we see that housing starts are increasing over the longer term, that indicates that the builders have confidence in the market. So that's a leading indicator that the market is predicted to do well in the near term. So that's a positive thing to be aware of and kind of be looking at, and again, something to watch on a regular basis. How about interest rates? So interest rates are a very hot topic. We know that interest rates have been on an upward trajectory from the lows that we had not too terribly long ago. We're still having trouble forgetting those 2% and 3%. But what we also know is that interest rates they're cyclical, just like the real estate market is cyclical. And so the prediction I'm hearing from our lender partners is that interest rates we predict have hit their high, right? So when we look at what interest rates are doing as of late, they are coming down. Now, I heard this saying just recently, and I thought it was cute. When rates go up, they take the escalators. When they come down, they take the stairs. So certainly, as we see this improvement in interest rates, is happening very slowly, whereas it felt like when they jumped up, they jumped up very quickly. We are under 6.5% currently for the 30-year mortgage rate, which is down from 7.08% just in November. So that's a pretty good change. The prediction out there is that rates are going to continue to come down. We are going to see that stair-step relationship, though, where they are all over the place. They're up one day and then they're down, and then they're up and then they're down. That's just, you have to just understand that that's what happens. But the prediction is that in the new year, by the end of the new year, we'll be seeing rates again in maybe the mid fives. So that represents just about a 1% change in interest rates. And that's going to lead into the silver lining I'm going to tell you about here at the end of the video. So keep that in mind, because that is an important point to be thinking about when you're asking the question of, is now the time? Let's talk about inflation. Inflation is kind of the thing that we're talking about. Oh, the Fed has to raise rates to curb inflation. We've got to keep things calm, so on and so forth. Well, the leading indication of inflation, the prediction is that over the next 10 years, we'll be seeing an average of 2.3% inflation. That number doesn't scare me. I don't know about you. I wouldn't imagine that's too scary. If I was retired and trying to make my investment portfolio keep up with inflation, 2.3% would be a number that I would feel very comfortable being able to manage. Rental vacancy rates. This is just kind of interesting. 6.5% for the state of Florida right now, which is down from 17.8% peak during the Great Recession. So one of the things that we have to also keep in perspective is how does our current market relate to what we experienced in the Great Recession? And this is something that I believe Irene will go into in more detail next week during her Truth Be Told message. But the things that we saw in the 2009 crash, we are not seeing right now. So things like the job cuts, we are not seeing right now. Things like the subprime loans, we are not seeing right now. The foreclosure rates, we are not seeing right now. We had very high inventory levels. We have low inventory levels. So everything is actually opposite when it comes to those negative factors that led into the Great Recession. And so I think we have to be mindful of that and kind of be able to cut through the noise that you hear out there when people start talking about that fear factor. Oh my gosh, this is a repeat of the Great Recession. We're going to have a housing crash. The important factors that led to that are not relevant today. So just hopefully have confidence that that is the case. The next thing I want to talk about is really looking at mortgage rates. So we just said, hey, we've been on that upward. We all know that mortgage rates have come up pretty quickly, or pretty quickly is kind of an understatement. They've come up at a rapid pace. But what we do have is the current downward trajectory. So when we look at this, the 7.08 in November, and then how we've stepped down from there to 6.3 as of mid-December. So that's encouraging. And as we talk about how that impacts the market, we know that buyers are thinking, well, maybe I should time the rates. Maybe I should wait and see what happens. If they are starting to come down, let me wait until they get down to, a certain level. And this is where the silver lining really comes in. If you are in the market to buy a home, and I don't care if you're an investor buying, if you're a buyer buying for yourself, if you're buying a vacation, whatever it may be, think about the opportunity that you have in this market right now. We have increasing days on market. And we are talking for the local market, 90 days on market becoming the average again. That's causing sellers to be uncomfortable. We have downward pressure on price, makes sellers uncomfortable. So what's happening, since we don't have this aggressive multiple offer war for each property, what that creates for a buyer is the opportunity to decide the price you want to pay for a house and then go after it. So the recommendation would be go into the market with a confidence about you as a buyer, and then present offers to the sellers. Don't be afraid to present the offer. I always say put some framework around your offer so the seller understands where you're coming from, but put your offer out there and find the opportunity that exists today. Because as rates continue to come down, if the prediction rings true and we drop 1% interest rates, what do you think is going to happen? Buyers that are waiting are going to come out of the woodwork, and they're going to start fighting for those properties again. So you have that correlation then between better rates, higher price. So how about lower price right now? And when the rates do start coming down to a level that it makes sense, you refinance and you end up in the same or better position because you got to pay the price you wanted to pay. So there is always silver lining when it comes to these things. Don't be afraid of them, and just really kind of go after what you're looking to do, and just be mindful of what the current cycle of the market is and how that benefits you. And that's where we really come in. My team is on top of these numbers on a regular basis. So I do think that we can be very helpful for you when it becomes time to negotiate your position on a property. Now, what's the pricing forecast for 2023? So this chart is kind of all over the place, with some appreciation, some depreciating in value. The overall message, when you put all of this together, and I'm going to go with Lawrence Yun, which is our economist for National Association of Realtors. He says, we're going to have some markets that have a appreciation in the new year, and some markets that depreciate in the new year. But the overall expectation is that prices will be slightly up. We are not going to have these huge increases in value. We are at a place where things are going to be stable. And I do think that that is what we're seeing as far as expectation. So nothing to be afraid of, nothing to maybe be overly excited about, but there is still a lot of equity in homes because of the growth of home value that we saw over the last few years. And with that, if you need or want to make a move, there's still some really good benefits to selling your home and doing that right now on both sides of the fence. So I hope that helps to bring some clarity to what is going on out there right now and how to really discern and analyze what's happening. And certainly if you have any questions about the market, please reach out to us. We're always here to help. And like I said, I want to share with you my resolution for 2023. I always do business planning and business goals. So in the new year, I intend on listing 90 homes. So I will be able to help 90 people advance their home ownership dreams. And I look forward to working with those individuals. If that's you, please let me know, because I'm here to assist you with that process. And if there's anything at all that my team or I can do for you, please give us a call, 352-794-1426.
Ruth Squires here with RES Luxury Group at eXp Realty. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to my channel for more great videos like this. And thanks for watching.